So this morning, I want to talk about kindness. Kindness as a way of life. There's a beautiful Sanskrit word, Ahimsa. What is Ahimsa? Do you know? It's the first yama. It's nonviolence. That's the short definition. But the longer definition is to not wish harm to any living creature, not even any lifeless objects. It is an attitude of universal benevolence. Universal benevolence. So this spiritual principle was especially embodied in Gandhi, in Mahatma Gandhi's life. He really made this principle come to life in the way that he lived. He was a living example of Ahimsa. He was peace embodied, and that's why I really love this prayer that we are now including in our service, that the prayer chaplains are leading. I offer you peace, I offer you love. Such a powerful prayer. But Gandhi, for him, nonviolence was so powerful because it was aligned with truth. It was aligned with love. Nonviolence is a quality, you could say, of the divine, of God. In its fullest measure, nonviolence is kindness. And so, Gandhi was able to liberate India in a nonviolent way. It was mostly nonviolent. Through combining ahimsa with truth and tolerance. So it really is a quality of an awakened human. And to me, it is the most beautiful quality in anyone. I love to see kindness. I love to see kindness expressed. I love to see innate goodness expressed. The Dalai Lama loves it too. When he was asked what the most essential spiritual quality was, he answered, kindness. And he said, be kind whenever possible. And then he said, it is always possible. When we witness kindness, when we witness the mirroring of innate goodness, we feel hope. We feel hope, we feel happiness, we feel in the presence of love. We feel that all is well in the world. We feel like it's going to be all right when we see kindness, when we see innate goodness. So it is the most revered quality in all the world religions. As Ganeshadas said in the ancient yogic sutras, it was the first principle. Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras. And Patanjali said, once ahimsa is mastered, even wild animals will become tame and harmless in our presence. I have a story about that. Lions and tigers and bears and deer and turkeys live in my yard on Granite Street. I have a 3-acre yard, and we have all these creatures. Every day when I walk out of my house, there's usually a flock of turkeys. I think you probably all have this. This is Ashland, right? But there's always a flock of turkeys or a herd of deer. And often when I'm walking out my back door up to my car that's parked up, I have to walk through a long bit of grass, there's often a buck or a few bucks and some very large bucks with some very large racks. And when I walk by them, sometimes they're so comfortable with me, they don't really move. And sometimes I walk by them, I'm just a foot away. And I walk very calmly, and I just make sure I don't startle them. And I speak to them often, and I tell them how beautiful they are. And they look at me, and I feel this ahimsa. I feel this interspecies connection and ahimsa, and I really feel that they recognize my vibration, and they're totally comfortable with me. When I lived in Mount Shasta 32 years, the bucks were not nearly so tame. So I really love this beautiful interspecies experience that I have. It's funny though, I'll read on Facebook, especially like the Ashland community posts once in a while, somebody will talk about the aggressive deer, right? And I think to myself, the animals, these creatures, they just respond to our energy. They just respond to our energy. And if there's no fear and we're in this state of ahimsa, they're fine, right? But if we're aggressive or we're fearful, I saw a little boy chasing a large buck in the park the other day, and I said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Yeah, because they're powerful, right? They're powerful creatures. So the Dalai Lama writes about this. He wrote, in Buddhism practice, we get so used to this idea of nonviolence and the ending of all suffering that we become accustomed to not harming or destroying anything indiscriminately, anything. Thus, we share a sense of universal responsibility for both mankind and nature. And to me, this is what we're moving towards if we want to sustain our planet, if we want to sustain humanity. We really need to move towards this universal responsibility for both mankind, womankind, all kind, and nature. So to me, the most spiritual person is the one who's the most easily kind. I've kind of gotten to where the Dalai Lama, I feel the same way. My religion is kindness. My religion is love. And if I have a political motto, it is make America kind again. Kinder and kinder again and again. I just feel like let's mirror goodness, because when we do, we are so beautiful. We are so naturally expressing God, naturally expressing God. I'm not so impressed by someone who is up on the latest metaphysics or espousing spiritual knowledge if they're not kind, right? I'm much more impressed by kindness. In unity, the first two principles are not surprisingly about kindness. They're about kindness and goodness. The first principle in unity declares, God is all good, and active in everything, everywhere. So, in other words, spirit is omnipresent goodness. It's goodness itself. And then the second principle says, I am naturally good because God's divinity is in me and in everyone. So the Buddhists say the same thing. They just say that we have innate goodness. But because we also have conditioning, right? We learn behaviors, and sometimes we learn behaviors from an unconscious parent, role model, society. We learn behaviors that might not be harmless. And so to truly live a life day in, day out of nonviolence takes practice, it takes discipline, it takes intention. And especially in our thoughts, A while back, I gave a talk on Earth Day, and I was telling you about how I went and painted the trees. I was trying to save all these trees around Lake Siskiyou that the county, Siskiyou County, was trying to cut down because they had a budget, and they were not quite, they didn't have enough money. So I went out there the day that the owner of the logging company was there, and also the county supervisor was there. And I went out there, and I just went up to have a conversation. And I really turned up my ahimsa and my centeredness, and I spoke to them. And I spoke to the owner of the logging company. He was a very, very large man. And I just felt all this respect in him. And I just really appealed to the light in him. And I could tell, he had this conditioning. He was sharing with me about his family, that he came from a logging family, and grandparents and great-grandparents, and that was their reality. And I could tell that, that he didn't spend a lot of time thinking about how other people that love nature felt about the trees being cut, or how the animals and the creatures felt. But we had a really respectful conversation, and also with the county supervisor. I also invited some other people to join me, and they came, and we had a dialogue. It felt useful. So between that and getting the whole town involved, and also painting a few black lines over blue lines on those trees, we managed to save hundreds of trees around Lake Siskiyou. Yeah. Yeah. But the point that I want to make, and what I really want to say is that part of becoming conscious for all of us is expanding out of our narrow personal interest, right? Because, sometimes that's all we see and that's all we've been taught, our personal interest. That owner of that logger company, he had his personal interests. He had his family. He wanted to cut the trees and make the money. But if we can communicate and we can plant the seed of the possibility of starting to think about others and how they feel, and a wider view, the common good, right? The greater good for all, okay? That's what waking up as humanity requires. I love that prayer. The Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu prayer. It's a prayer we always do with Alma. I've done it for so many years with her. May all beings in this world and all the other worlds be happy and be at peace. I say that prayer. It's part of my practice every day, every night. And I say it for all of you, and I say it for our greater world community. So another piece of nonviolence, of ahimsa, is getting to goodwill towards family members or people in our lives that we may be estranged from. We've all had that experience, where we felt estranged from a family member or somebody close to us in our life. And that is a pain that lives in our heart when that isn't healed and released. And we might feel like it doesn't affect us, but it is always there. It's like a buried pain. It's like scar tissue in the heart that keeps our heart from being totally wide open, totally clear and able to hold the most unlimited love. So we can work towards at least neutral will. That's what I always inspire people to start with. Work towards neutral will, if not goodwill, towards those that we feel estranged from. That's where our work lies. And it doesn't need to involve them. Sometimes they're not living. Sometimes it's healthy not to involve them. It's just to set ourselves free inside, I like to use the loving kindness meditation where I focus on myself and then the people that I love, and then I extend it to neutral people, and then to those that I'm having a challenging time with. Jesus offered so many teachings on ahimsa. I mean, his ministry was all about that. This is one that's really powerful. He said, if you just love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Expand your love to love your enemies and have goodwill for them, and your reward will be great. Be merciful as God is merciful. When I'm around Alma, the amount of love that she generates and emanates day in, day out for thousands and thousands of people. She's the sun, and everyone is welcome. There is no one that is not welcome. And I walk away from that wanting to love more and wanting to have no blocks in my heart, not a single one. I might have shared with you a practice that I do that helps me forgive. I always see myself at this one spot on Siskiyou Lake because I walked that lake for 32 years, and I always see myself coming around this curve, and whoever it is that I'm having a challenging time with, there they are. And they're coming towards me. And as we get closer and I look in their face, their eyes start to water. And I can see they're very soft, they're very humble. And as they get right up to me, they actually start to have some tears. And they express that they really are so glad that they're running into me because they really have something they want to share. And they share that they really feel regret for the suffering that I have gone through because of their actions. And they say the exact words that I need to hear. I say them out loud. I speak the words out loud, the exact words I want to hear from them. I speak those words out loud. I put them into the atmosphere. And then, there's this softening in my heart, and there's some more tears, and they ask for forgiveness. And then, we're done, and we bow. Sometimes we hug, and I walk on. And as I walk on, I can tell that my heart is opening, that something is melting here and opening back up. And so I do this, and I'll do it again and again if it's a situation that's really hard to forgive. I'll do it again and again. And it is so powerful because healing happens. Healing happens. I did this with my landlord. Yeah, I think I might have told you that plumbing problem I had a few years ago. I did this with my landlord, and we have had healing, and we're good. So, our thoughts are powerful, and there are things that exist out there in the atmosphere that can be picked up, and they're not limited to space. Thought doesn't work like that. It's not limited like material form. Thought form is not limited to space. So that those healing ideas, those healing thoughts are in the atmosphere. And when we do that, we're creating ahimsa. We're creating and expressing innate goodness versus repeating a story of resentment. Because the alternate is to continue to repeat a story of resentment and tell it every day or every week or every month. That is a subtle form of violence. And it's violent most of all to ourselves, to our own precious hearts that want to be free of resentment and hurt. So, another aspect of ahimsa is the practice of doing no harm to ourselves. Doing no harm to ourselves. So it's fascinating to me that in the Yoga Sutras, that first principle is ahimsa, and that hatha yoga is such an important part of the yogic tradition. I remember Mickey Singer was the first person I did yoga with. He always had yoga at the Temple of the Universe, Michael Singer. And then for many years at Brighton Bush, I taught yoga an hour and a half a day. And the way that it feels in your body when you release every drop of tension, of course those hot springs help too, but oh my goodness, you're so open. And then you can feel more Shakti, you can feel more prana, you feel more life force in you flowing when you're that open. So we want to take care of this precious chariot. I feel like we're consciousness in a chariot. We want to take care of our chariot and love our body through a healthy diet and enough rest and enough quiet time. That's kindness to ourselves. The founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, were vegetarians. They were inspired by Vivekananda. They met him in 1893. So vegetarianism is a conscious choice. It's another movement towards, not harming. I've been a vegetarian since '78, and I feel like my body is very healthy. So, of course, my role models, Amma, she's a vegetarian. Thich Nhat Hanh was a vegan. Gandhi, of course, was vegetarian. So that's just another thing we can consider moving towards. I was reading how Gandhi was such a huge inspiration to the Dalai Lama. I didn't realize that. The Dalai Lama writes about his first trip to India, how he, back in 1956, how he made a pilgrimage to where Gandhi was cremated in Rajat on the banks of the Jamuna River. And he was talking about how he was standing there at the edge of that river in prayer, and he was having this immense cascade of emotions. And one of the feelings was this great sadness of not getting to actually meet Gandhi. But then he was feeling also this great joy at the magnificent example of Gandhi's life. And no surprise, because they were both not just spiritual leaders, but political leaders. I'm just especially impressed by the leaders in our world that can do both of those things. I honestly would love the world to be run by awakened, enlightened masters. I really would hugely prefer that. Yeah. Ravi Shankar, I love his music. He told a story about how his grandfather lived at Gandhi's ashram for 20 years. And so he grew up hearing all these great stories. I would love to hear some of those stories. But he said that it was always about, that whatever the story, the teaching, it was always about moving from greed to generosity. It was always about moving it was moving towards service and a sense of belonging to a larger humanity. And Gandhi said that, basically for every act of violence in this world, let us offer 100 acts of nonviolence. Isn't that wonderful? Let's do that. Let's do that. We can outnumber it, outnumber that unconsciousness, right? Gandhi was all about the voice of nonviolence needing to be heard loud and clear, right? So we can apply this and see how many acts of kindness and expressing innate goodness we might do in a day, right? It could just be our thoughts. That's enough. That's enough. Sending out loving thoughts and holding them for ourselves as well. We don't necessarily have to save the world. I have a plaque that hangs in my little apartment. It says, "We cannot do great things in this world, but we can do small things with great love." Mother Teresa, and I love that. So I love stories, though, about these humble beings that are unlikely heroes, right? And they find their goodness, and they express their goodness. I like both fiction and nonfiction. Did you all see Lord of the Rings? I know that's not a non-violent movie. But I love Frodo. If you saw Lord of the Rings, or you read The Hobbit, right, or you read the trilogy, Frodo was it was all about overcoming darkness and overcoming violence. And he was this humble, pure-hearted hobbit, right? And he was asked to complete this Herculean task, basically, of taking the ring of power that would corrupt whoever held it if their heart wasn't pure. And take that ring to the forsaken land of Mordor and throw it in the crack of doom, right? And the ring symbolized this immense raw power, which inspired greed, right? And would destroy the world. And to me, it's such a story for our time, for the time we're in. I mean, I just feel like that is really our challenge. Michael Singer says it's moving from the third chakra to the fourth chakra, from power and control to love, right? I love that quote. When the love of power becomes the power of love. That's the movement we're looking for. So Frodo didn't think he had it in him, right, to complete the task. And we relate to characters like that, right? It's like he loved the world, he loved his little shire town, so he was willing to try, right? And I feel that way myself sometimes. Like as a minister, I want to bring truth. I want to make a difference in the world. And I have self-doubt at times. Like, am I really making a difference? But Frodo, when he was having those kind of moments, his traveling buddy, Sam, his best friend, would remind him. I love this one quote where Frodo's overcome with doubt and Sam says, "A new day will come. And when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer." I feel like we have to remember that when we're doubting and wondering about humanity. There's a moment, it's really treacherous, and Frodo says, "I wish none of this had happened." Does anybody ever feel that way? I wish none of this had happened. And in that moment, Gandalf shows up, of course, the wise wizard. And Frodo had just said, "I wish none of this had happened." And Gandalf says, "Well, so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All they have to decide is what they will do with the time that is given to them." Yeah, it's kind of the story of our lives, isn't it? It's like we're all on a hero's journey, and we need to have tremendous compassion for ourselves in this journey. It's demanding to be here. Anybody else feel that way? Anybody else just skating along, having a great time all the time? Yeah. So, Frodo never saw himself as a hero, but that's what made him so beautiful, right? The most inspiring thing we realized watching Frodo and Sam on their journey to overcome darkness is how they grew in ways they could have never imagined. And that's what we're doing. We're growing in ways we can't even imagine, right? It takes courage and bravery, and we get to discover what we're made of, what's in our hearts. It reminds me of Mr. Rogers, another one of my heroes. He said, "We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say, 'Not my child, not my responsibility, not my world, not my problem.' Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes. Yeah. So I just want to thank you, beautiful humans. I want to thank you all for your acts of kindness. I thank you for mirroring goodness. I see so much goodness here. I see so much goodness as I'm getting to know you. I'm in awe. And I just, want to inspire us to carry on and to have faith and to have hope, have faith in our innate goodness. And let's just keep finding more and more random acts of kindness to perform, or they don't have to be random, right? Let's be kind to ourselves, and let's also consider forgiving more fully, right? To set our hearts free. Let's make this principle of ahimsa, of nonviolence, something we practice not only in our actions and our words, but in our thoughts. I'm going to bring this wonderful woman. She's a nonviolent communication teacher here in a couple months. She'll be our guest speaker. So, because I really love that teaching. So, in closing, would you affirm with me, I offer you peace. I offer you love. I offer you kindness. I offer you joy. I offer you friendship. Let us work together for unity and love. Thank you all. Blessings and love to you all. Thank you.